YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back after a wild card playoff round, recapping all four games from the first round of the playoffs. Some crazy ones, some upsets. We'll talk about those. We'll talk about what players impressed me as well. Right before we get started, if you didn't know, we were gone for a week because our channel got wrongfully suspended. So in that time, we made a second channel, and we have extra content already on and coming to that second channel. So in case anything happens to this channel again and for the extra content, please subscribe to the Goat House Plus. There's a link in the description of every single video and in the comment section. So please subscribe to both. We're trying to get both the 40K full NFL content. Already, we're in playoff mode here, predicting the playoffs, but we're already in off-season NFL draft mode as well, getting ready for that. This channel started with the draft. Goat House NFL, that is our Twitter. We were talking during all the playoff games live on there, giving my thoughts. A lot of you guys interacting with us. Any questions you have, I'm always open to answering them if there are realistic questions. So link in the description, follow us on Twitter, and then Patreon is for the extra content, and you can help us grow by supporting us. But let's talk about the games. Talk about the first one, a wild one. The playoffs got off to a great start here with this game. In terms of an entertaining game, but it was a little bit of a sloppy game too at the same time. A little sloppy on the field, but more sloppy on the sidelines, really, with the coaching staff. Well, we'll start from the beginning. I loved the first drive for the Bills. I was saying before the game that a big key for the Bills was to start with the ball and to go score because their game is defense. Everyone knows that. Their game's defense. So the easiest time for a non-offense, I don't want to say non-offense team because they can make some big plays on offense, but I think you get what I mean. But the best time for a team like that to score is the opening drive. It's really hard for the defense. It's harder for the defense in the opening drive. So, and they did just that. And they made sure they got the ball in the end zone with the nice trick play there. The Billy special, I was calling it. But yeah, Josh Allen, you saw him take off running too before that touchdown. So that was great. Great way to start it off. And the Texans really couldn't do much on offense early. They were getting to midfield pretty easily, inside the Bills' territory actually, and then kind of just shutting down a little bit. And that was a little disappointing, but it was credit to the Bills' defense. That's kind of how it was mainly the whole first half. That's how it was the whole first half for the most part. But it's pretty disappointing when the Texans, get past midfield that easily and then kind of just shut down. I mean, you should be able to keep the drive alive. They kept going to runs. You're a passing team, and even Duke Johnson was looking pretty good. Anyway, you're getting the ball, and they kind of stopped doing that. It kind of worked out in the end. I guess what they did, it worked. Apparently, I guess, even though I don't really agree with all the coaching decisions, but yeah, just the first half. We're sitting there at halftime, and the Texans just, down and not getting anything going on offense when they're an offensive team. It was kind of pathetic, honestly, because the Bills, good defense, really good secondary, they weren't really doing anything exotic or unique. It's not really a unique defense. So it was pretty poor that the Texans couldn't get any points there in the first half. The Bills, a crucial moment in the game, I was talking about this on Twitter, was a third down throw from Josh Allen in the first half. It was a perfect throw to John Brown. And it's one thing if you just can't get 2 feet in, but what John Brown did was as he caught the ball, he did like a little hop or a jump. And that it got to me because we shouldn't see that from an NFL receiver, period, once. Like that is high school level mistakes. Like it's one thing if you just, you just couldn't get the extra foot in, or you just had too much of a stride on your front foot. That happens sometimes. It's something with your brain a little bit. You think you kind of got to, because he's not the tallest dude, so that would be it wouldn't be a good moment, obviously, but it would be okay. But for him to do that little jump in that situation and cause one of his feet to go out of bounds, that was a mistake that we shouldn't see from an NFL receiver, period. That got to me. It got to me. And that was the difference between 7 points and 3 points. And I keep looking back at that moment. I hate to put a lot of blame on one guy, but that was pretty bad. And you can't blame the one guy for the whole game, obviously. I'm not trying to say that. But that was a crucial mistake, a crucial moment in this game. That should never happen. It should never happen. It was a really good throw by Josh Allen. Josh Allen was playing lights out in the first half, really. So yeah, getting field goals, and there was 2 occasions there in the first half, getting field goals instead of touchdowns right before the second half, or the first half, I should say. They had about 30 seconds or so, and they decided to run the ball. I hated that play call because it ran so much clock, and you were really left with nothing. So running the ball there, was was a very poor call. Josh Allen had some good balls. Duke Williams too. I'm not really going to blame Duke. I mean, he should have caught maybe a couple more balls that he could have had, but they were all pretty tough for the most part. So receivers once again weren't helping Josh Allen a whole bunch in this game. The second half, the crucial. Well, we can start with the kickoff, I guess. I was fine with what the officials determined in that situation. Apparently by rule, if you do give yourself up in any way, apparently he waved his hand and just throwing the ball to the ref technically gives yourself up. So, and they got it right in the end. It'd be a little, because if the Bills would have scored there, that would have pretty much, I think the Bills would have won the game, and that would have been, a playoff game. That's just, not the way we want to see a team win a game, I guess. But if it's the rule, it's the rule. But I think they got the rule right after, kind of looking at that. Seems like everyone around the league or knows the league is pretty much in agreement with that. So we'll start with that. I just want to get that out of the way. So I'm not going to make a big deal about that at all. Up till this point, the officiating was good. Yeah, they had some of the original, some calls wrong originally, but like plays like that, you can't really blame them. Refs can't really know every single. I mean, you expect them to, but it could get a little confusing at times. So up to this point, officiating was pretty solid. They were getting the right calls in the end. A crucial moment in this game, a big time moment, was J.J. Watt's sack. If he doesn't get that sack, and the Bills get some kind of positive play there, we're talking about a whole different game. I think the Bills win the game, honestly. So J.J. Watt, the toughness, which was never really questioned in the first place, but what he was able to play through and getting that sack. He didn't do a whole bunch, but getting that sack was game-changing and crucial. That's kind of what helped the Texans stay alive. They were able to start, Tre'Davious White was doing a good job locking down DeAndre Hopkins, but then all of a sudden, Tre'Davious White was still pretty good in coverage, but Hopkins was getting that extra step on him. Deshaun Watson was giving some good balls, unlike the first half. In the first half, Watson was kind of panicking too early. A lot of sacks were on him. He was throwing a lot of balls in the dirt, two outside, two inside for a guy like DeAndre Hopkins. Second half was a whole different story because they were down. It was crunch time. He had to step up, and that's what Deshaun Watson does. But then kind of fast forwarding to, at this point of the game, it's kind of back and forth, but the Texans, have come back. They got the lead, but, fast forwarding to the crucial, coaching decisions here, which started with the Bills, with the 4th and 27. We had Josh Allen taking sacks he should not be taking, but you end up with a 4th and 27. And there is a part of me that kind of understands the thinking of, not wanting to punt, because you could possibly punt this ball away and you do not have another chance in this game, and it makes you think. It makes you like, this was the playoff football, and I didn't try to win. That would kind of be the thought process for anybody. But at the same time, you trusted your defense all year. It's easily a top 5 defense all year. They played a pretty good game in this game. I think you could trust your defense a little more there. And going for it, what did you really expect to happen? That was kind of the main thing there. What did you expect to happen? So it was a very poor decision to go for that there. I'm assuming they didn't trust their kicker whatsoever, and I think a 62-yarder is actually doable, but they would know better than anybody if that was, I even think if there was some chance, I probably would have kicked it. If there was some chance, if it's like below 5% chance in your head, which I'm assuming it had to have been for the Bills, then yeah, I obviously see. But poor decision, but the worst, but even worse, part about it was Josh Allen taking that sack that far back. It was instant pressure. But what he did, you're better off throwing the ball away there. Even you're better off throwing it. You have to just launch it. Because it's actually a good thing if the Texans pick it off back there. Honestly, but so that was crucial. The Texans get the ball back, and they're just in, firm control of taking this game, and because of that sack put them way back there, and we're looking at a 4th and 1 actually, with maybe even was a little less than 1. With what would be a 47-yard field goal, and you go for it. Like at this point, I'm screaming at my TV, yelling at Bill O'Brien. You kick the field goal. The Bills, with no timeouts, have to score a touchdown. When they have to score a touchdown, a little easier to play defense when you can give up a field goal range. You can give up field goal range because the field goal does nothing. And you go for it, and everybody knows they're not giving the ball to Carlos Hyde there. They're not giving the ball to Carlos Hyde. No shot. Everybody knows it. Deshaun Watson is running the ball there, and there's not much he can do when the Bills' good defensive tackles and good linebackers are all stacking the box there. This was the worst call in the playoffs, in this game, in the playoffs in general. This was the worst decision by a coach in the playoffs, really, in quite some time, in my opinion. Because you kicked the field goal, you would have won the game. The Bills are sitting there with no timeouts, with 20 seconds left at one point. There was no way they were getting in the end zone unless something lucky happened. But instead, the Texans, instead of kicking the 47-yard field goal, gave it back to the Bills. Instead, the Bills get a 47-yard field goal to go to overtime. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And then we go to overtime, and neither team really could score. The Texans, just giving the ball to Hyde was just pointless at times. It felt like they were following a handbook, a stupid handbook. Pass on first. All right, let's get it to Hyde on second. Let's get a little closer. And then everybody knows we're passing on third. It's just stupidity. Hyde wasn't doing too much. I mean, he helped the team a little bit, got in the end zone at one point there. And Duke Johnson looked pretty good early. So, I mean, they stopped going to him too. But, I mean, you're a passing team. This is Watson's moments. I didn't like, insisting on going back to the run. It was basically like getting rid of a down. First and third down were the only ones that existed for the Texans. That's what it felt like to me. So they're giving the ball back, giving the Bills a chance. The Bills are actually moving, and like I said, up till this point, I thought the officiating was pretty good. Any mistake they made, they eventually got the right call. But a awful call comes at this point. With the blindside block on Cody Ford, and people said, with the rule change, it's the right call, but I say 100% false. With the rule change, it's still not the right call. He squared up straight in front of him. He hit him straight on, and the defender saw him coming. He clearly saw him coming. Cody Ford also a textbook block, saving his quarterback. And the league's all about quarterback safety. We're letting offensive linemen hold to save quarterbacks. We're calling more roughing the passer. We're calling it if a guy's fingertip hits the quarterback. But in that situation, Cody Ford is supposed to just let his quarterback get drilled from behind, probably only because it is Josh Allen and not... I was about to name the quarterbacks, but you guys get where I'm going there. So that's just absolutely ridiculous, and they were in position to hit a doable field goal, and that's game over. The Bills win. I'm not going to sit here and say, and blame the officials that the Bills didn't win, because it was one call, and the Bills had several opportunities, which they kind of blew because Josh Allen didn't play his best ball in the second half. His receivers sure did not help him in the second half, and his coaching sure did not help him. So, and they didn't execute touchdowns. They got field goals instead of touchdowns early. So the Bills deserve most of the blame, but I hated that call. Texans get the ball back. The Texans have they look like they're moving. The Bills have a realistic shot to get the ball back. That sack, the play of the game. They blitz Saron Neal again, which is a great call. He's a blitzing that's a type of safe. That's a type of weapon he is. But you can't expect a safety to get the sack every single time, especially on Deshaun Watson. He disrupted it like he was supposed to. Matt Milano also blitzed, who is usually a sure tackler. I love Matt Milano's game. Good young talent. Usually a sure tackler. Pretty much just was squared up and had an easy tackle, and somehow he could not make the sack. And he needs to make that there. He needs to make it. But at that point, you're thinking, Deshaun Watson, there isn't anybody that's going to take this down Deshaun Watson. I don't know what it is. It just is, that's just Deshaun Watson. You can name the hardest hitter or the best tackler in football, and they probably weren't going to take down Deshaun Watson at that point. On the run, makes the throw, and that's the game. And he flexes on him because he knows it's the game. And it just sums up Deshaun Watson, things that we already knew, that he is a winner. He was born a winner. And teams passed on him in the draft, and that was a huge mistake. So Deshaun Watson puts the team on his back. Defensive players definitely helped too, but win that game. But the Bills had a realistic opportunity. I predicted the Bills to win 23-20, which looked like it was pretty close to happening. It was the opposite. Texans 22-19. Very entertaining game, but pretty sloppy at the same time. Titans and Patriots. Next game, I did pick the Titans, so I felt pretty good about that one. It felt like the Titans controlled most of this game. There was one point that it felt like the Patriots controlled for a little bit in the first half. And in the game-changing play, everyone's looking at Derrick Henry, what he did, and maybe the Logan Ryan pick at the end, or whatever it may be. But the biggest moment was the goal line stand to force the field goal for the Titans. And you have to credit multiple players, but I mean, Rashaan Evans, you could argue. It's hard to argue the MVP of this game, what Derrick Henry did, but I mean, that was the play or plays of the game, because he did the same exact thing twice on him. Instinctive and freakish plays by Rashaan Evans. I mean, just he knew the plays, first of all, and then he had to jump over a guy, get through a block, and wrap up, make a form tackle, big hits. I mean, those are the plays that get me excited. When you see an instinctive, freaky play like that and you get multiple of them there to hold the Patriots to a field goal, those were the plays of the game. Those were the plays of the game right there. And that pretty much what shifted it to be the Titans control most of this game. It felt like the Patriots were going to control most of this game, but because of that, the Titans did. A little help from that guy, Derrick Henry, the rushing leader. I mean, the guy was dominant. The Patriots knew it was coming. They couldn't stop it. It took multiple guys to tackle him. It was ridiculous. I mean, the guy's going to hit the hole. He's never going to hesitate once. And he's the hardest guy to tackle in football. The last guy anybody wants to tackle in football is Derrick Henry. And that's pretty much what did it for them, because and the defense clutching up in the second half. They weren't on their best game in the first half, but I said as the playoffs were starting, I still trust the Titans defense. It's looked a little sloppy. I still trust this defense, and that's because of guys like Rashaan Evans, because of guys like Jayon Brown, who actually got hurt in this game. Hopefully he's okay as a key piece, but they have Wesley Woodyard. They have David Long. They're full of the inside linebackers that can make an impact. And their safeties, play a real good game too. Byard and Vaccaro all over the place. But yeah, the key was just running Derrick Henry. Just keep on pounding. They know it's coming, but you just have to keep doing it. I hate when some teams, it's working the run, but it's starting to get predictable, and then they start to get stopped. But not the Titans, not with Derrick Henry. Much improved offensive line from start to finish this year too. That was key. Tannehill, like I said, 72 yards. He really wasn't on his game. That interception was really bad. He almost costed him dropping that snap the one time down the stretch, and that was a crucial moment too, because the game very well could have been over there, and I'm thinking the Patriots are going to win this game, but the defense stepping up big time, down the stretch. Early there was zero pressure, and you still don't like where their pressure was at down the stretch, but it was much better. Not actually hitting Brady for the most part, just kind of collapsing the pocket a little more, because it was just a 100% a clean pocket in the first half. Down the stretch, Edelman had that drop. He turned his head way early. We see it all the time where it's a little early, but it was way early, and that was crucial moments. And they just couldn't do much. There's not really there was a big moments like Rashaan Evans stepping up there. It's a big moment that the Patriots couldn't get in the end zone, field goals instead of touchdowns. But mainly the game was Derrick Henry and a lot of defense in the second half. Really it felt like there was not a single point scored in the second half. But the Logan Ryan pick six, what he should have had earlier, but he dropped. I know it was a little wet out there, but you should catch that. But a veteran mistake, actually, which was a great play, but a veteran mistake not taking a knee there, because the Titans could have ran the clock out there, and the Patriots had a shot with a kick return. And the Titans made it a little easier for them to have a shot by going for two. If you kick the extra point, the Patriots not only have to return the kick, but go for two as well, rather than if they return the kick, you're going to overtime when you had no business going to overtime. So I didn't like that 2-point conversion. I know there's some people out there who like put the game away now, but those people kind of act like the 2-point conversion's a 100% guarantee. It's not how it works. Even with Derrick Henry, running over everybody, it's not nowhere near guarantees. So, kick the extra point there. That was actually I like the coaching staff, the improvements they made from early in the season, but that was a stupid decision there, no doubt about it in my mind. But yeah, it was pretty much Derrick Henry, Rashaan Evans stepping up. Like I mentioned, some other guys stepping up for them. The Patriots just didn't have enough. Receivers didn't help Tom Brady once again. I expect a big jump for N'Keal Harry next year. They'll make their moves in the offseason. They'll get another receiver. They'll definitely look at the top tight ends, free agency and the draft. But they have a lot of decisions to make. They have a lot of free agents, including Tom Brady. So that's going to be very interesting there. But yeah, the bad news is Tannehill didn't play his best game. 72 yards. He had that interception was terrible. He dropping the ball. And they still won. That's kind of the good news. The bad news is, that you play a little sloppy. Is that how it's going to be against the Ravens? Ravens have an equally as good defense to me as the Patriots, and they have a lot more offense. So it's going to be a tough task. But the Titans, I love that they're very well balanced. Everywhere within the offense and looking at the offense and the defense, very well balanced. Down go the Patriots though. Even though I picked the Titans, it's still kind of a moment that's like a little surprising. It's still. Like that. And I had you guys vote, if you have notifications on, in the community section on the channel, the AFC Wildcard Player of the Week, and it was a majority vote for Derrick Henry. And second would go to Deshaun Watson, third to Rashaan Evans. So Derrick Henry, the AFC Wildcard Player of the Week, voted by you guys. The next game, the Vikings and the Saints. A little bit of a surprise here. I'm a Vikings fan. I even picked the Saints. Crazy game here. And I thought the Vikings controlled this game the whole way. It was kind of a shame that they let it go to overtime. I blame the play calling a lot in this game. The playbook and the system are great. We've seen that in overtime. I'm already fast forwarding to overtime, but we've seen that in overtime. I was actually pretty confident when they won the coin toss because when there's no clock to worry about, because there is a clock, but if if it ends, it just goes to a second overtime. It's not the regular season. But so I was confident because they have, the playbook and the system, and when they have to go score, it seems like they always could score. It just seems like the Vikings, and it looks good. It looks good right there, but it's kind of a slap in the face if you look backward. They could have put the game away so many times, but I hate this feeling, but it really feels like that they think clock is more important than points. And there are a lot of people out there that think that, managing the clock, winning the time of possession, those are key points to the game, but points on the board win the game. If you put a team out of reach, you win the game. The Vikings had several opportunities to do that, and it's another slap in the face when you have the talent, when you have, Cousins ain't the best quarterback in football, but obviously the guy can throw. You got Diggs, you got Thielen, they got a pretty good tight end group. Looking at their first two, obviously, are Rudy and Irv Smith. You have Dalvin Cook, you have Alexander Madison. You have the talent to put this game away. The Bills had chances to put the game away. Josh Allen at his young age, with his lack of weapons, that could be a reason why they couldn't do it. The Vikings have those weapons, so it's a little bit of a shame to let this game go to overtime, but they get it done in overtime. Kind of going back to the start, Thielen starting with that fumble, did not switch hands, had the ball in the wrong hand. Looked a little slow to turn around too after he caught that ball. At that point, I'm thinking, the Vikings can't start with a fumble and win this game. Defense clutches up. They hold the Saints to 3. Yeah, and throughout, it seems like every time the Vikings get the ball back, they're moving the ball, but something happens, whether it's, I hated the trick play call. The next time they got the ball, they were working the field very, very easily, only running the ball. Everybody knew it was coming. It was still working. And then you finally go to throw a pass, and it's a trick play that Diggs is supposed to throw a pass on. No one's open. Everyone's in his face because they read it. Nothing. That ended up making a second and long, a third and long, and then a field goal. Credit to Dan Bailey, credit to Dan Bailey actually been hitting the kicks, recently, so there was some kicks in this game that were hit. He missed a couple extra points this year, but been pretty much money for kicking the field goals there. But yeah, they were always moving the ball. It looked like pretty easily, and then something always happened that kind of stopped them. And they were playing really good defense on the Saints, and then when the Saints took the lead, it was, kind of somewhat of a trick play. It's not really a trick play anymore, but Taysom Hill bombs it, Rhodes out of position, actually almost made an insane recovery. That actually would have been a good play if he made that recovery. Almost did, couldn't quite do it, led to a Saints touchdown. But yeah, what's going on throughout the rest of the game here is, I think, bad play calling on both sides. The Saints were doing something they normally don't do, and I think it was because what the Vikings were able to do to Michael Thomas. They were able to slow him down. Some of the game, Rhodes was one-on-one on him, and he actually did a pretty good job at most of the game. What we talked about pre-playoffs was if you successfully double Michael Thomas. I know some teams have been doubling him. I think not enough teams have been doubling him most of the game, some of the game. But if you successfully double Michael Thomas, that could be the key because Breeze stares him down a lot. And the Vikings, Mike Zimmer had Barr in the – it wasn't a true double. You don't got two guys covering him at the same time, but it was a zone double. And Anthony Barr would be in the flats on Michael Thomas, and Anthony Harris would be over the top of Michael Thomas. And Anthony Harris is a playmaker, maybe the best playmaker in football all this year. Ridiculous. We've seen him get that ridiculous interception that was crucial in this game. But him being over the top, Michael Thomas really, really limited him. But there was opportunity for Michael Thomas. Barr was kind of almost forced to go outside, cover the flats on the outside. And so I think, slants and, posts, not the deepest post would have worked for Michael Thomas. So I was a little disappointed not to see him get going more. And Breeze was really struggling too because he kind of would look at him first for a good period of time. We saw that a lot. On the last sack, actually, he was staring down what looked like Michael Thomas the entire time, and that kind of forced the sack. The offensive line didn't play their best, but I think it was mainly on Breeze. A little shaky early to take his eyes away from downfield and just focus on the pressure. We got to credit the Vikings' pressure. I mean, Danielle Hunter and Everson Griffin were lights out in this game. Ramczyk not giving up sacks all year, and then gave up 2 to Danielle Hunter in this game. So you have to credit them. I credit Mike Zimmer even more. The guy's a genius, what we already knew on the defensive side. And that kind of goes back to the Saints. play calling, what they were doing wrong. They were forcing themselves to get to obvious passing situations. It was kind of like throw on first for a short ball, run on second. It's going to be third and 4, 5, or 6. Everybody in the world knows it's a pass. Everybody in the world knows it's a pass. So what does Mike Zimmer do? On top of his great, genius game plan of having Barr and Anthony Harris on Michael Thomas, what does he do? He brings 4 pass rushers on the D-line. We've seen this from him starting the Chargers game, which the Vikings defense dominated, because there's no point to D tackles. The D tackles are there. Guys like Linval Joseph are there to stonewall running backs. That's the only reason they're there for. So there's no point to D tackles when it's obvious it's a run game, or a pass play here. So he actually has their pass rushers, starting pass rushers, Danielle Hunter and Everson Griffin on the inside, and he puts their backup pass rushers, Odenigbo, who's had a really good season, and Stephen Weatherly on the outside, and it created wonders. The Breeze could not do much. So you got to credit the actual players, but Zimmer even more for running, creating that. But at the same time, the Saints could have avoided that. The play calling was just very, very scripted, and it just felt like they were playing for third down. And I didn't like that for the Saints at all. And that really costed them at times, especially with the Vikings, what Zimmer was kind of scheming up there. But yeah, the Vikings were able to move the ball. At one point, it just felt like they should have had more points. They couldn't just execute. I don't blame the players at all. Players really weren't making mistakes at this point besides, Thielen early. It was kind of play calls, or they would get a holding, get called back. It just was things like that. It just felt like the Vikings were dominating this game at this point. And they finally get on the board at the end of the first half. And the Saints, we thought that, after a good kick return, they can get a field goal. Unfortunate missed field goal. That kind of hurt them. I think the Vikings would have gained, the second half would have been a little different. They were worried about running the clock. If the Saints hit that field goal, I think that things would have been different. So it affected the game, no doubt. But I don't know if you can really talk about that in the end at all there, because I think the game would have went a little differently. But yeah, at halftime, it felt like both teams really could have had more points, but it felt like the Vikings defense was playing, extremely well with the pressure. And the second half was the same thing. The Vikings just keeping this lead, holding on to this lead, and they're continuing to play great defense. The Saints are continuing to be predictable, but the Vikings are just too worried about running the clock when there was just way too much clock left, and it's just run. They kept insisting on the pitch, which it has a lot of risk towards it when you look at this game and you look at past games this year, a lot of risk, and that almost costed them. Several times in this game, it almost cost them. They got stopped short. Looked like they could have had a fumble once or twice, as a bobble on a pitch once or twice. So that kind of cost. I hated the play calling. Let me just get down to it. I absolutely hated the play calling, from both teams, but at this point for the Vikings, because it was just, all right, we're going to win with 20. That's what it felt like. They thought they were going to win with 20 points, and we're talking about the Saints here. We're talking about the Saints. And really, this game had no business going to overtime, but they let it happen. And at one point, it felt like the Saints could win the game, which eventually the Danielle Hunter strip sack, which was a key part to this game. Drew Brees' first fumble on the year, only the second Ramczyk sack given up, and that was on the day to both Danielle Hunter. So, that was crucial in this game. And then it goes to overtime. The Vikings win the toss. And that's, again, at that point I was pretty confident because they have the system and they have the playbook and they have the play calling when they don't have to worry about the clock or they don't have to worry about somebody getting hurt. They're worried about a pass rush being too good. That's when they're best. And you see what they could, it kind of hurts a little bit. They could have done this so many times. The only thing I didn't like about that last drive was the pitch call again because it wasn't working. It was very obvious. But the bomb to Thielen was an absolute pearl. I love drawing that up on first down. Even the slip screen that didn't work. There was a slip screen like 2 plays before that. I like the play call. So if something doesn't work, I don't jump on a guy for the play call when something doesn't work. Things don't work all the time. That was a great play call. And then the bomb was great. And then everybody knew the ball was going to Rudy. Kyle Rudolph in the second half this season was just fantastic. One of the better contested catchers, one of the best, hands in football. That was a great idea. It was a great throw. Not enough credit to Kirk Cousins for that throw. And then people kind of making a big deal about the PI. I actually saw a really good shot with the defender actually had his hands inside the shoulder pad, not just grabbing the outside, inside the shoulder pad of Kyle Rudolph. As Rudolph kind of put his hand on him. And I was kind of talking about this, on Twitter right after the game ended. And then the NFL then eventually came out with their response to it. And it was almost like word for word the same thing. So it was a good job not calling that on either the defender or the tight end in that situation, because if you're going to call that on either of them, we might as well, you can't touch anybody anytime. It's a soft game, which it has been a soft game this year. The defender was not in the proper position to make a play anyways. Back turned, real low position. That ball had to be in the area and it was going to be caught pretty much. So the Vikings outplayed the Saints. That's the impressive thing, and they do have talent everywhere. That's the thing about them. They have talent everywhere, so it really shouldn't be a surprise. The Saints, really good season. It's tough to end it there. Breeze was definitely off his game. The play calling was definitely off his game. Guys like Marshawn Lattimore, who started off the year real strong, was really off his game. The really only bright spot, I'd say, is Demario Davis. Other guys played well, but that was really only a bright spot. Several Vikings guys could have been thrown in there for the MVP. Everybody wants to vote for Cook or Cousins, and I understand why, or they want to vote for Thielen. I'm looking at defense. I thought there was 3 studs on defense for the Vikings: Danielle Hunter, Everson Griffin, and Anthony Harris. I'm probably leaning toward the MVP of this game. It's easy to say Danielle Hunter because he had 2 sacks on a guy that haven't given him a sack, and he had that strip sack that pretty much changed the game. But honestly, my pick would probably be Anthony Harris. Covering Michael Thomas over the top on majority of plays on defense, and Harrison Smith kind of wanders a lot. That's his game. So Anthony Harris really has sideline to sideline when thinking about it against the best receiver in football. And he had that insane interception on top of it. He didn't really give up anything in this game. He's been maybe the best safety all year. My pick would be for Anthony Harris for the MVP for this game. So I was a little disappointed. I had people vote. I was a little disappointed. More votes didn't go that way. But I understand the other ones too. Saints got a tough decision. We'll talk about in the offseason. Breeze, Bridgewater, Taysom Hill, all free agents. I have my takes on that. We'll save it for another time. I've been focusing on that game. That game, the Texans game, I talked about too much. Seahawks and the Eagles, I had a whole bunch to talk about in this game, except for, I wish the Seahawks would have done a little more. I wish they would lay off a little more too. I mean, I love football being, tough and I guess violent at times. But yeah, I think the Clowney play probably should have been flagged. Watching it the first few times, I thought it was really, really bad. I didn't think it was as bad the next few times I watched it, but it still should have been flagged, kind of just the way he put his head down and the way he aimed it. But he did get off his feet the same time that Wentz just started going down. So I don't think it was late. I don't call that a late hit. I just think the way he put his body, which you can see he put it like that. He made his body like almost like a spearing, position. So I didn't like that. They hit McCown a way I didn't like either. If you follow us, I rarely complain about this. Anytime there was any type of late call, I hate it because I don't think the team on offense earned that yardage. That's where I hate it, and I hate when the game gets soft. But I think these ones probably should have been called. I don't know if it would have changed the game. It sucks that Wentz goes out. It's a likable kid. He's a good quarterback. Don't get me wrong, but I don't know if much would have changed. There's some throws that McCown, I think Wentz would have hit. Some, limited. But there's some that I don't know if Wentz would have hit. The only big difference was Wentz's, moving in the pocket, outside the pocket, and running. That was the only glaring difference and could have been a difference in this game. I like the way the Eagles use the running backs on the outside. Miles Sanders, Boston Scott, those are outside running backs. Miles Sanders had a really good rookie year. If there is a point where he needs to work on something, a little bit struggles a little bit, it's kind of, sometimes he'll hesitate when running between the tackles, doesn't really hit the hole right away. But just fantastic on the outside. Had another fantastic game. Was worried he was hurt at one point. And in Boston Scott, we see he ends up being a weapon for them. But they need to get healthy. That's an obvious. But it's scary going forward because, you can't just say, all right, they'll 100% be healthy next year. It's not going to happen again. But you can't really say that because it could happen. I don't think this many injuries will happen again. But, it's a little scary. But the Seahawks, really the only thing going for them was, offensively, Russell Wilson played his game. It was nothing, crazy. We've seen way better from Russell Wilson, but it was a very good game. And then DK Metcalf was just dominant, absolutely dominant. What he showed to me was a combination of some elite things that he has there, and it's length, strength, and speed. Combining those things, it's elite because I don't know if there's really anybody that has it. You look at it like a Julio Jones, like that's what he's got. Like it's ridiculous. I'm not saying he's as good as a Julio Jones. He very well could be eventually. But what a great landing spot for him. What a steal. We see the Eagles pass on him for Arcega-Whiteside. And yeah, Metcalf made the Eagles look silly with that, but they were really thin. In the secondary, I mean, the last play of the game, they had Marcus Epps back there on him, which is interesting because they had Sendejo, who was a former Viking. They got rid of him. The Vikings got Sendejo back, helped them win a playoff game, and the Eagles take Marcus Epps from the Vikings, who they cut for getting Sendejo. It's just, you're better off just keeping Sendejo by a long shot there, but I mean, that's not the reason. They struggled. Injuries was the main reason. I do think Seattle's better. They had no run game really. Marshawn Lynch had one good touchdown, beast mode touchdown we'll call it, but they had no run game. It was pretty much launch the ball to DK or Lockett. Every player Russ can make moves on he was the leading rusher. He can make the moves with his legs. So it's pretty easy to game plan against when you're ready for it. At the same time, you're thin on players. Seahawks still are able to do it. But yeah, it scares me about the run game and the pressure getting to Russell Wilson. You're going to go and playing against the Packers with their pass rush. The defense got a lot better. Kind of one-dimensional. It's a little scary. Really wish they had Chris Carson at times like these. But yeah, not the most exciting game. Looking at the defensive side, Clowney's going to get all the praise because the praise that he shouldn't get, but I already see people on Twitter saying for hurting Carson Wentz. A little ridiculous to say that, even though I didn't like the play. But for getting that last tackle on McCown, which that play, you can't really blame McCown too much. He saw an opening. It's not really one, you wish things would go differently. You can do this here and there, but it's not one of those plays where, you can get too mad at him because you can't really blame him. If they are in that situation with Wentz, maybe they would have, maybe they wouldn't. Maybe he could have got away and ran. Everything would have looked a lot different probably in good and bad ways, I think, at times. But yeah, good play for Clowney. So people will kind of praise, Clowney for that play, which they should. Clowney's a heck of a player, but the player that's kind of gone unnoticed, most of the year for the Seahawks was a guy like Quentin Jefferson, a guy that can play pretty much anywhere on the D-line, any spot in the D-line. We've seen him play nose, seen him play three techniques, seen him play four, seen him play on the edge. You've seen him play, everywhere on the D-line. There's so many different positions there, and we've seen him play, everywhere. And the guy was dominant in this game. He was getting after the quarterback. He got 2 sacks, I believe, getting the pressure. It's a guy you have to game plan for because he's not always in the game. He's a good rotation guy. Sometimes he'll start. They got a really good D-line over there. And you don't ever know where he's going to line up. You never know where he's going to shift to right before the ball is snapped. Pre-snap adjustments, he'll change those adjustments on you. So that's a very underrated player, and he's been really good since week 1 this year. Will go unnoticed. But the same exact score, actually, 17-9 since the last time these two teams played. Same exact score, so pretty wild there. But yeah, DK Metcalf was voted the MVP of the NFC from wildcard round. Well-deserved. So you guys voted for Derrick Henry and DK Metcalf. I probably would have voted for the same players if I had to choose, NFC out of the games, and AFC out of the 2 games there. My next choice probably would have been, if we'll take defensive guys, we'll look at Rashaan Evans from the AFC, and we'll take Anthony Harris from the NFC there if I had to choose. So appreciate you guys for voting. It's always cool to see what you guys think there. We'll do that next week as well. But we're going to rank. We're going to power rank the remaining playoff teams, even the teams that got eliminated. We'll talk about those, preview the upcoming games. I got a mock draft coming very early this week, hopefully soon. Working on that, and all the predictions, score predictions, regular predictions for the divisional round games. Some good ones coming. We'll see if there's more upsets this week like last week. But that's going to do it. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Please subscribe to both channels and follow our Twitter. Link in description and comments for that. We would really appreciate it. It would help us out a bunch, and it would keep you up to date with us and all the NFL coverage. That's going to do it for this one. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Goodbye.